You're listening to the Faith Breathed Hope podcast, episode number 80. Today, I speak with public figure, anti-abortion activist, and founder and director of Choice for Two, Laura Klassen, on healing the abortive heart. Welcome to the Faith Breathed Hope podcast, where we gain inspiration and motivation from others who share their touching stories of renewing hope and discovering purpose in any circumstance. I'm your host, Christina Reisinger, and today we will be encouraged by another tremendously inspirational topic that will embolden you to release fear, begin taking small steps forward, and move into your God-given purpose to live and serve in this life. Join me for today's story. Hello, Laura, and welcome to the Faith Breathed Hope show. How are you today?
I am very well, thank you. It's really nice to finally meet you.
I know we've been trying to look at this interview for quite a while, and I'm so glad that you finally were able to join me. So the first thing I always have my guests do is to come on and share something about themselves that maybe they're not necessarily known for, not necessarily a secret, but something that's interesting.
Well, right now I am hatching chicks in my house in the next room, and one of them is just piping in an incubator. So that's kind of neat.
That is neat. Inside. That's cool. Okay.
Yeah.
And then the next thing I usually would love for you to do is to share a little bit about who you are, what your story is, and really what got you to the place that you are in life right now.
Sure. So I was raised in a Christian home, and I became a Christian very early. And I was a very artsy person. So the trajectory of my life all the way through, I ended up working as an opera singer, the Canadian Opera Company. So I worked there for about 10 years. And at the same time, I started Choice for Two, which is the anti-abortion organization that I run here in Canada. And I really first became aware about abortion when I was a young child, and I saw someone on the side of the road with a graphic image, and that stuck with me. And so all through life, I was thinking about it a lot. And then I started volunteering at a crisis pregnancy center, and that's where I actually started the organization. And then it got to the point where I wasn't able to be doing theater and running an organization. I had to pick one. And at that point, it wasn't really a hard choice. I really was struggling sometimes with, like, what am I doing with my life, running around on a stage? And then on the other hand, doing Choice for Two is just so much more, I was so much more passionate about that. And that was actually, there were lives on the line. So that's kind of me in a nutshell. I've gotten a lot more, I guess, outspoken and bold over the past few years about what abortion actually is. And yeah, I guess that's how we ended up connecting abortion stuff.
Right. So I saw some of your things that you do online, and I became interested and started thinking that I should try to reach out to you and connect, and here we are. So, abortion is something that is something I actually don't speak out a whole lot about, but have in the past, like I told you before we jumped on here, and feel the need to just speak about in a way that allows people to see that life can, let me back up just a second. So I'm going to tell the audience, they probably already know this, but when my fourth child was born, she was considered incompatible with life. So the option to terminate was given to us. And, over the years, I felt like God kind of nudging me, saying, hey, you need to speak out about this, not in a way of shaming necessarily, but in a way of saying, hey, there is a place for everybody in this world. We are all God's creatures. We're all created by the Lord. And I found that my daughter, even though she was considered incompatible with life because of her diagnosis, was considered, in my mind, in my heart, compatible with love. So I find it very interesting, the things that you do. And of course, would love to shed any kind of light on this whole thing. You said you started early. Were you still a teenager? Were you college when you started working at the Crisis Pregnancy Center? How old did you say you were?
Oh, I would have been in university at that point.
University. Okay.
Yeah, but up until like the way it worked with me was that every single school project I ever did was on abortion. So all the way through elementary school and then high school and then university, even to the point of like debates in class. So I really was like always thinking about it. And I didn't even know that there was a pro-life movement here in Canada. Uh-huh. So I just felt like I'm one person here by myself. My church doesn't talk about abortion. Nobody talks about abortion. But when I started researching it over the many, many years, I really realized how horrific it was. And I came to the point of realizing that it is child sacrifice. And I can remember reading my Bible and, going through the Old Testament, and there'd be child sacrifice. And, they went up to the high places and they passed their sons and daughters through the fire. And I realized that's like, we're still doing that. We have not stopped with the child sacrifice. And it was Christians many times that shut that down back in the day. And so I really feel like Christians need to stand up now. Christians aren't even generally willing to think about or discuss abortion. Mm-hmm. So that's how far away we are from it here.
Right.
In my country. You're in the US, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. I feel like you guys are a bit, you are a bit more down that path of Christians and pastors calling it out, which is amazing. And hopefully Canada will follow.
Yeah, some of them. But it's definitely a very difficult topic to talk about. I think maybe no matter what edge that you're on, whatever side that you're on, it is something, to be quite frank, makes me a little nervous to talk about, because I believe wholeheartedly I've always been pro-life. But when Isabella was born, there was something that stirred inside of me when somebody tells you that your child is not compatible with life, and you really, really have your heart filled with love for that human being that says, hey, wait a minute, what do you mean she's not supposed to be here? Because as a mom, and I have other children that are living, everybody counts. It's not just because I already have a child that this child doesn't necessarily mean anything to me. Every one of them is loved, and they're loved, as much as the first one. So I had a really hard time with the incompatible with life piece, because it was always like maybe we're supposed to make a different choice. And I think a lot of women, well, let's talk about first the emotion that comes with this choice to, keep the child or not to keep the child. There's a lot of emotion in that. There's a lot of emotion maybe before you become pregnant, during pregnancy, and after pregnancy, whether you make one choice or another. One of those emotions is fear. Is there anything that you want to talk to is like about fear? Fear is huge, right? I mean, with a lot of different topics, but in abortion, I'm assuming that is a really big factor in whether or not you make one choice versus another.
For sure. And it is really sad that we even have this choice going on as you're pregnant. Now you have to choose whether you kill the child or not. Like that's where our society's at. Yeah. But yeah, fear for sure plays into it. Just before I jumped on here with you, I was talking to two different women on Instagram who both just messaged in the last hour. They're pregnant. They're being pressured heavily to abort. The one's mom is threatening to kick her out if she doesn't. And the other's boyfriend is threatening to kick her out if she doesn't. Mm-hmm. And so there's a lot of fear there, because they don't, right? Losing your home and not having any support, and you're pregnant. And both of these women want to keep their babies, but they are dealing with the fear of, how am I going to do this? Mm-hmm. So fear is huge. But what I was telling them, like, God created this child, regardless of how, the actions that led up to this child being here, God created this child for this time, and God chose these two women to be these two babies' mothers. So God is going to see you through if you rely on him. That's another thing, because a lot of women that connect with us are not Christians. And so then here we are saying, well, but God's going to, call out to God and he will help you. And they're kind of like, what, what are you talking about? But he does. And our organization helps as well to alleviate a lot of those fears. But yeah, and I understand how scary it is for a woman to be pregnant when she didn't necessarily want it, plan it, and doesn't have the support. It is huge.
Right. And then there are other factors and other emotions, like guilt later on, or sorrow and different things like that. I want to go back to the idea of God can handle it. I talk a lot about strongholds, and when we talk about strongholds, the first thing people think about is something that ties them down, something that holds them back from doing the thing that they want to do. But the Bible tells us that God is our stronghold, says that he is the one that is our refuge. So when we focus on God, no matter what issue we have, and I don't know if somebody out there needs to hear this today, because I speak about it often, but in the case of abortion, or making a choice or not making a choice, anything that you do, if you give it to God, you surrender it to God, you focus on God, he is going to take care of it. And you said, well, like you were talking about the two ladies just a minute ago, well, how's he going to provide a home for me? If I'm getting kicked out of my mom's home, if I'm getting kicked out of my boyfriend's home, where am I going to go? How is God going to just miraculously, is there going to be an apartment there or something? And what I have found, and you can tell me if you think any differently, is that what he does is he provides not only maybe that physical space, but he provides a better mindset, this peace, this freedom that comes only from him, that doesn't come when we don't focus on him. Do you notice that? I mean,
oh, absolutely. Like if we can help a mother to come to know Jesus Christ, it's a complete change, completely. So, if she doesn't, things can be hard. Things can still be hard, right? Like if you know Jesus, but yeah, that mindset of he's got this, that is what is going to get you through, and he will have you. And in terms of like physical place, like if these two women get kicked out, our organization is going to get them a home. Like that, there it is, it's already right there. So they're like, yeah, they do have options.
Right. Is your organization considered a Christian organization? Do you actually talk to your clients? I guess, I don't know if you call them clients or not, but do you talk to them about God and how he can work in their lives?
Yeah, because like we can, help to save the baby, but we want to actually save them. We want to see this mama plugged into a church so her child could grow up in this community of Christians and also come to know Jesus Christ. So yes, we do share the gospel with them, and then we also help them.
That's wonderful. Now, are you only in Canada, or do you work with American, like people from the USA?
Yeah, we work worldwide, actually. It's really exploded over the last maybe 2 years. Okay. Most of the women that we end up connecting with are Americans. And I think that's just a numbers thing. Like your population is right. way bigger than ours. Yeah. But now we have women in the UK, women in Africa, South America, all over the place.
Oh, that is amazing. So, I was talking about that being compatible with life as far as a diagnosis, but, when you're talking about the woman who, there's all kind of situations. I'm sure you've heard of everything. There can be the teenager that accidentally finds, well, it's not really accident, but, finds herself pregnant, yeah. Or, there's worse things like rape and things like that. And then there's the mom that maybe already has a kid and is afraid that she's not going to have the money to pay for another one. There's the parent that finds themselves pregnant who maybe feels like there's not enough money, that kind of thing. So you can think of all of these things as being not compatible with life. In our case, it was definitely a physical diagnosis. how are you able, other than saying, hey, you know what, we're sharing the gospel with you and this is what God can do? I'm sure you have some people, you said not everybody's a Christian. I'm sure you have some women who come to you and say, I don't believe in that nonsense and I still have a problem. So how do you speak to them gently? So as not to get necessarily, and I know you have a lot of people who come at you, but how do you work with those people?
Well, it's getting them to understand like our cultural mindset, because if you're struggling to pay your rent and you've got a 2-year-old, killing that child is not on the table. That's not something that would even cross your mind. Oh, I'm struggling to provide groceries, I'd better murder my child. It's just this idea of babies before they're born don't matter, that they're not quite human. So I will just talk to them rationally, like,
Yeah.
and they'll agree with that. Like, would you ever, to the mom that has a child already, would you consider killing your first child instead of the one that you're pregnant with right now? And they're like, no. I'm
Wow.
like, well, this is your child too. And this child, you're going to love this kid just as much as you love your first kid. And so, take murder off the table and let's figure out some other options for you.
Are they more willing to come and say, hey, I think I'll consider this, when it's kind of taking down their defenses, I guess, a little bit, making them feel a little bit better about it? They're coming back to you and say, okay, I'm willing to listen to more.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. People will, especially at first, they'd say, you can't speak to women the way that you are. You can't use the word murder. You can't be judgmental. And I'm like, well, I'm very judgmental in terms of that. I believe abortion is murder. And I do not want to see that woman murder her own child, because not only is the kid going to be dead, I know what that means for her. I know the trauma that it brings upon a woman. And I don't want that for any woman. So the way that we do things is just very to the point. It's truthful. We're not hateful. And the thing is too, they come to us. We're not like hunting women down, trying to find people who are, right? It's just our inboxes get filled up with women being like, hey, I'm pregnant. Can we talk? So I do. Yeah, I guess if that answers it.
Yeah. And, I think it's interesting that you said that people, that you noted that people actually come to you, because I think that people just want to know, women, anybody, but, in this instance, women, people just want to know that they have somebody who will listen. And so a lot of people in general are just very opinionated, and we have this fantastic thing called the internet that allows people to be outwardly opinionated and to really kind of draw the line on what their thoughts are without really having relationships with people and without listening. So I think that when you say, hey, people contact me, they're searching for somebody to listen to them, somebody to give them hope. And I love the fact that you say that you point them to the gospel, because Jesus is your hope. Jesus is hope. And God is going to be able to help anybody in any situation, especially if you do, like we said, surrender to him. But that piece of being not compatible with something can change around in a heartbeat, whether it's a miracle or whether it's a change of perspective as well. Now, I want to ask you about talking about after women. Do women too come to you that have already had abortions, right?
Yeah.
They've already had abortions. And how do they approach you? Like, I'm sure there's a lot of negative emotion in that. They feel a lot of guilt, and they may not know who to talk to. It may be making them feel like they don't want to admit that, that it's bothering them. How do they actually come to you? Do you have a specific place that those women can come to you versus people who are pregnant and reach out to you and say, hey, I don't know what I want to do. Go ahead.
It's kind of the same place. Like we just have I'll have my Instagram or my Facebook and they'll just message in, but there's really two groups of post-abortive women there, because you have the people who are really hurting, who want to find some sort of peace. And it is very, what they need in that case then is to understand what they did, so that they're able to ask forgiveness from Jesus Christ, who will give it to them, so that they can, have that weight lifted off their shoulders. So that's kind of one camp of people. The other is the people who are post-abortive, who are hurting, but who are very angry. And so they're very triggered by anything that I do, even to the point where, you know, a baby is born and we'll post the baby picture and they'll say, oh, this kid, too bad this kid wasn't aborted. Like just awful comments. Like they're so filled with hate and they're hurting. And I get lots of comments from my followers too, saying like, why don't you block these people? Like they're, you know, they're constantly posting these hateful things. And I'm like, well, it's because you can see that they're hurting. I would bet you like they are post-abortive. And then it has happened where people that have just trolled my stuff, this one woman for 3 years messaged me and she's like, I'm sorry. It was wrong what I did with the abortion. I was just so angry. Anytime that you say that abortion was wrong, I was hurting. And now she's would call herself anti-abortion. And that was like 3 years of her sending FU and all these terrible messages. Wow. But you can, yeah, like you can see the pain. People don't really get that angry not being involved, you know?
Right. You know, and I've seen some of the stuff that people write on your Instagram is where I found you. Okay. And it is not nice. Some of the stuff is not nice, you know, and I often wonder how you deal with it. And the interesting thing for me was that you're able to still speak into their comments, their lives. Now, I don't know that you comment on every one of them, but without necessarily tearing them down, you know? And so, you know, you just stay to the facts and this is what's, you know, going on. And I've seen that people even lashed out to you about God too. So you have a lot of those people as well. You know, Laura, I would like to ask you if you would like to do something. Every time we start to end a show, I ask a couple of different things. The first thing is I would love for you to give some encouragement to different types of women out there. Maybe it's the woman who is pregnant and she's scared. There's a lot of fear in her life. Maybe it's the woman who's already had an abortion and she's hiding a secret and it's eaten her alive. First of all, can you do that? Can you speak some encouragement to those women right now?
Yeah. So if you're pregnant and you are, you know, freaking out and maybe considering abortion, I would just really ask you to realize that you are already a mother. You're a mother now. You're not choosing whether or not you're going to be a mother. You're choosing whether or not you're going to be the mother of a dead child or a child who's alive. And our cultures just pushes abortion so heavily as an option. It's not an equal option. It is not equal with parenting or choosing adoption. It is the murder of a child, and you don't want that on your heart for the rest of your life. And so I would just encourage anyone who's facing an unplanned pregnancy or considering abortion that I would love to talk with you, easy to find online, and so that we can, you know, help to find some real options for you. And then to the post-abortive woman, oh man, I've come to realize over the years just what a heavy, heavy burden that is. One of the women on my team who's a friend is post-abortive, and just watching her over the years, it has done such damage to her, but she has been able to find forgiveness through Jesus Christ. And so I just want anyone to know, like, no sin is too big for Jesus. There is hope for anyone. And even for someone who has basically had their own child murdered, that's what it is. It's awful. There is hope and there is freedom through Jesus Christ.
Mm-hmm. Yes, definitely. And where can they reach out to you? I know on Instagram, and but it's not your name. So can you tell everybody?
Okay, that's right. Yeah, on Instagram. I forgot about that. Well, if you do search my name, Laura Klassen, then my account will come up on Instagram. It's classy in pink. And that's a whole other thing because of some videos. On all the other social media platforms, I'd just be Laura Klassen, and then also our organization Choice for Two. They could also find us through our website, which is Choice42. It's the number 4, the number 2. So it looks like choice42.com.
Okay, awesome. And then Laura, I'm going to ask you one other thing. I don't do this with everybody, but I want to see if you would like to close us out in prayer.
Oh, sure. All right. Dear God, thank you for this opportunity today. Thank you for Christina, that she is willing to talk about this, even though it is uncomfortable and awkward and is probably going to bring up some backlash for her. Thank you for her boldness, and just protect her over this next while as this airs. And I pray for people watching this, that if there's anyone who is pregnant or who is post-abortive, that this conversation would have been an encouragement to them, maybe be a conviction. And I pray that they would not abort. And I pray that if they already have, that they would reach out to someone who can point them to you, so that they can find forgiveness. And just thank you for this opportunity. And I also pray for Christians watching this, just that they can be bold in talking about child sacrifice, that they themselves can get educated, and that they can speak for these children and speak against modern child sacrifice. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much. And yes, if you guys are listening out there, and you are afraid, you're in a situation where you're pregnant and you don't know what to do, you don't know which choice to make, please reach out to Laura. And also, if you're post-abortive, you can reach out to her as well. And you can always message me too, and we will pray for you. But thank you, Laura. And thank you, everybody, for listening. Continue to be blessed and bless others. And I'll see you next time. Bye, Laura.
Bye.
And I want to thank you for joining us on Faith Breathed Hope, where you gain inspiration and motivation to renew hope and discover purpose in any circumstance. Please like and share this podcast and give us a review on iTunes. Be blessed.